Sif Gimel. When Simon Yud Sif Gimel. Kof al karnos talisoy v'koshom v'tofron. If he folded over a corner, he's got a four-cornered garment. It starts off with a four-cornered garment, and then he folded over one of the one of the corners, and either he tied it or he sewed it. It looks as if he cut it off, but he didn't cut it. Ve'eno kanfos. So now he hasn't got any corners because he folded it or sewed it. Alpha became leniftorah. It doesn't help. It doesn't pater it from the mitzvah.
You can't hide the corner and pater the beged.
No, you can chop off the corner. But you can't, if you fold it or sew it, it doesn't help. Okay? Let's continue. If Dalid. If Dalid. Talis shel beged. Uknofeho shel oyer chayeves. He shel oyer uknofeho shel beged ptur. If you have a garment which is mostly made of material, but the corners are made out of leather. It's chayv and tzitzis because the majority of the garment is made of material. Right? Even though you might have thought that the main part is the corners because that's where you put the tzitzis, it's not correct. It doesn't matter even if the corners are made from leather, which is not material. It seems the majority of the talis is made from material. It's chayv and tzitzis. He shall knafel shel beged ptur. If it's the other way around, then the majority of the tzitzis is made of leather. The majority of the beged is made of the garment is made from leather. And only the corners are made from material, then it's potter.
So the din is on the beged, not on the confos.
Right, we go after the majority of the beged. Right. Great. So if, Hoylo Gimel Kanfos. V'oso Bohem Gimel Tzitzios. He had a garment with three corners. And he put on it tzitzis. He put tzitzis on the three corners. V'shuv also b'knaf dalet, and then he cut out a fourth corner from the garment. V'oso gamboy tzitzis, and he made tzitzis on this fourth corner as well. Psula. Right? This talis is possible. Why is it possible? Mishum ta'aseh v'lo mina osri. There's a halacha ta'aseh v'lo mina osri, which means that you have to do the mitzvah in a. It's difficult to translate it. Right, you have to act. That's right, active. That's a good way of doing it. You have to actively do the mitzvah, meaning that the mitzvah has to be done at a time when the garment is ready chayv. Here, when you put tzitzis on the three corners, the garment was not chayv in tzitzis, so he hasn't done anything. Now, when he cuts the fourth corner, now he turned the garment into a four-cornered garment, but the three tzitzis are already on it, and that's passively making the tzitzis. He hasn't actively made a pair of tzitzis, he's passively made it. He's made the tzitzis have automatically become relevant. And when he put the tzitzis on, when he did the action of tying the tzitzis on, the garment was not chayv for tzitzis. When he chops off the corner now, and he's now automatically these tzitzis are becoming tzitzis relevant. They're becoming relevant, these tzitzis now.
The previous three.
The previous three, that's right. That's called osoi. That's called osoi. They've already been made.
If he reties them?
So you'd have to take them off and retie them. Right?
It's like
we have this in out there. Okay,
like a sukkah that you can't just leave the schach there. You have to actually put the schach on. Let's say you use your sukkah as let's say you use your sukkah as the nashim.
Right.
So
that's the different halacha of sukkah yeshana. The case of tasim nashim with sukkah is if you put on the schach before you make the walls. Let's say you have a canvas sukkah and you put up all the metal poles and then you put on the schach. Right? You now have a sukkah without any walls because you just have a few poles.
Just have a frame.
Right. Just have a frame. Just have the frame. That's right. The frame. You have a frame and schach. So you've got just schach without any walls. Right? Now you put on the walls. That's the problem with Taz V'Lemin also. When you put on the schach, it was irrelevant. It didn't do anything. It wasn't a sukkah. Right? Then you make the walls. Now the schach is becoming relevant. That's called osoi. That's called ta'aseh v'loy min osoi. We have to make the sukkah in a way that you're making actively ta'aseh v'loy min osoi. Not that it's already been made. Right. If we translate it like that, so it's relevant. The sukkah is relevant here. The other cases relevant as well. So one can only put on tzitzis after one has the four corners. After the garment is ready, chayv and tzitzis, then one should put on four. It can also be relevant as well. Again, we mentioned that there's some poskim who hold that 5 corners is not chayiv. According to Shulchan 5 is. According to other poskim, it's not. And we mentioned preferably we wanted to try to Yotze the other poskim who hold that that only 4 is chayiv. Therefore, preferably we should avoid a 5-corner garment. Right? So, what if one has a 5-corner garment and he puts tzitzis on the 4 corners, and now he rounded one of the corners? Right? He had the 4 or 5 garment.
That's actually.
So he hasn't done anything. He hasn't helped. It's still a garment which, according to the Shulchan Aruch, is chayiv, and according to the other poskim, in fact, he's caused problems. According to the other poskim, previously the beged wasn't chayiv in tzitzis. Now he's rounded off one of the corners. He's now got a beged that is chayiv in tzitzis. But his tzitzis aren't helping. They're not becoming the mitzvah because the tzitzis were on the garment when it was a garment that had 5 corners, when it wasn't chayiv.
So it hasn't changed anything.
He's taken away made it worse.
Power of the tzitzis.
According to the Shulchan Aruch, nothing's changed. According to the poskim who hold that a 5-corner garment is not chayiv, he's now got. He previously had a garment that wasn't chayiv. He now has a garment that is chayiv in tzitzis.
Already has tzitzis on it.
And the tzitzis are not kosher because they put them on because it's tasvalim and also because they were on the garment at the time when the garment was potted.
But that's only according to the other poskim.
That's right.
Not according to the Shulchan.
That's right. So he's made it worse. He's made it worse. According to the other poskim, he's now wearing a garment that is chayiv in tzitzis and doesn't have tzitzis.
Oh, I see.
So interesting. Even though it physically has strings there, the halacha-theory hasn't got tzitzis, and therefore he's in a worse situation. According to Shulchan Aruch, it's fine. According to the other poskim, it's worse. So if he's going to take a 5-corner garment and round off a corner, he should do it before he puts the tzitzis on.
And in this situation, you would have to retie all 4
tzitzit,
not just 1.
Correct.
On the other end of the spectrum, where it has 3, is there an inyan to specifically cut out a 4th to make it chayiv, or is it just if a beged happens to be chayiv, so you put 4 tzitzis on it?
Tzitzis is not a mitzvah chiyuvus. There's no mitzvah to make tzitzis.
Right, that's what I said.
However, the Gemara said that Hashem does punish on it if people don't. It's such an easy mitzvah to do. Make a garment with 4 corners, put it on. So we makpid. We always wear beggars with 4 corners. So we don't have to go around making as many garments as we can with 4 corners. We're makpid. We wear talis kosan every day. We have 1 garment with 4 corners. We don't have to start making. If you have a garment that's 3, it doesn't have a 4th corner. It's fine. The main thing is that we have 1 beggar that we wear all day with 4 corners. That's what Kehilla Keren makpid on. One beggar with 4 corners. Okay.
But in principle, you could be wearing 16 tzitzit.
Right, like the Shamber.
Right. Yeah.
So Sally used to wear. I think it was something like 16 or 18. I don't know exactly.
Yeah, because they were tied differently.
Sorry?
Yes.
Yeah.
He at some point wore up to 100.
Really?
But I think they were all tied differently.
Yeah, they're all according to different sheets.
Oh, really?
And then after many years, I think it became. The doctor said it was too much of a strain because it's a lot of those are wool. So he cut it down, but still
85.
no, still a large number. But
he looked like a football player with it, shoulder pads.
It's an exercise to raise your hands. 100 times raise your hands every morning.
Right.
He was our linebacker for Hashem.
Yeah.
On the defensive end.
Let's move on. So if Vav. Okay. Ein koiflen es atalis. We shouldn't take a talis. Right? Let's take imagine the talis we used for davening, talis garden. It's a large garment. He wants to fold it in half. If you fold it in half, it still has 4 corners, right? If you fold it in half, right, this is a talis. If you fold it in half, we now have 4 corners. 1, 2, 3, 4, like this. Right? So he wants to fold it in half and then puts this in the 4 corners. So this part really is a folded over part of the beged, right? These parts are folded over, and here he really has 2 corners which are joined together. Just wants to fold it over, put scissors on the 4 corners like this, and wear it like that. That's the situation.
Doesn't he have 6 corners at that point? He had the first. He had these.
Right.
He had these 4 corners. Yeah. Now he folds it like this. He has 4, 5, and 6. No,
again, he's magic calling this. These are now together. So he wants to look at that as one.
He sewed it together.
He hasn't sewed it. He's just folded it. He wants to
but
consider
it's 2
that
separate pieces of fabric.
Correct. So let's have a look.
Okay.
Right. So he says, as you mentioned, ein koiflin, right? Ein koiflin, one can't do it, right? It doesn't count. Right? As you're mentioning that these two corners, the two corners you put together are still considered separate corners, and also the middle, the folded part of the garment also, it's just it's not a proper corner, it's just folded. Right? Folded doesn't turn it into a corner. We can't get rid of corners or make corners just by folding something.
Right, or it seems you can't even do it by sewing it.
It says here, here he says folding and sewing helps.
Right.
So the question is, what's the difference, right? Because it says here that if he sewed it, then it does help. Now, what's the difference between the previous halacha? We saw that if you had a corner that you just folded, that you sewed, you rounded it off by sewing, that doesn't get rid of the corner. Here he says if you fold the whole garment over and sew it, then it does. That does. Right? So this is what you're asking, right?
Yeah,
it's a contradiction.
Exactly.
Does sewing help or does sewing not help? Okay, that's the contradiction. So now let's have a look back at a previous Mishnah. I wanted to wait until we saw this halacha before we saw it. Let's have a look at Mishnah of cooking-bishul.
We're jumping ahead?
No.
Oh, Mishnah
of cooking-bishul. We're going back to the Mishnah of cooking-bishul on the previous page, where he's going to, on that previous if, he's comparing it to Sifrov. I wanted to wait till we'd seen Sifrov before we discuss it. You with me? Sif cooking-bishul. I'm sorry, I'm starting on the third line of Sif cooking-bishul. So it's exactly 2 lines beneath. Sif cooking-bishul is right near the end of a line. I'm starting exactly 2 lines beneath that. There's a full stop and it starts with chol. Yeah, Rov Chof Zayin, an abbreviation. Yeah. The chol b'shekofloi v'tofloi be'igul. This is if he folded it and sewed it in a rounded shape. Avalim kofal v'tofal b'rebua. But if he folded it and sewed it in a square shape, seeing as now it also has a corner, Tzit-Tzit bekefel. He's going to bring now 2 opinions to explain the difference between the Sifrim. The first opinion he brings is the opinion of the Levush and the Mogen Avraham. Right? The Levush, just reminds us of who he was. Levush was Mordechai Yafa. He was a Talmud of the Ramah. Right? So we're talking about 450 years ago. He wrote after he's the generation after the Shulchan Aruch Ramah, and he wrote a sefer which combines the 2 opinions of Shulchan Aruch Ramah into one opinion, and he also adds reasons. He didn't like it that Shulchan Aruch Ramah didn't explain reasons behind halacha, so he adds reasons. That's the Levush. The Mogen Avraham is possibly the main commentator in the Shulchan Aruch. Right? He's on the side of the Shulchan Aruch. He's the main commentator. Avram Gumbina, I think his name was. So the Levush and the Mogen Avraham, they hold that there's a difference between if you're turning a corner into a non-corner, in which case sewing doesn't help, whereas if you're reshaping a corner to a different type of corner, then it does help. Right? In the Sif Gimel, he was getting rid of corners. There, sewing doesn't help. In Sif Dalit, he's just reshaping the talis in a different way that the corners are going to be in different parts of the beged. So he still has a 4-cornered garment, but the corners are just placed slightly differently, right, through folding it. So there they hold that that sewing does help. That's the explanation they give. And he says, "V'gabim chol kanazeh, shvilu hidgam b'zeh lo imani atzviro, shani ahita sifov demai shekoflo kulo, v'chein derech malbush, ma'shein kim b'zeh shelekof arak miksas ha'beged." Others say no, that it's not the difference whether you're turning a corner into a non-corner. That's not the difference. The difference is that whatever you do to a corner, even if you reshape a corner and it turns out into a square, it doesn't help. It doesn't help. Sewing doesn't help. Right? What you did in Sif Vov is you folded the entire talis over. Right? When you folded the entire talis over, that's the derech. It's normal to do such a thing. That's a regular thing to do. Right? You're turning a 1-layered garment into 2 layers. It's very common to have a 2-layered garment. And therefore, seeing as that's the derech to do something like that, that's the regular way of doing things, therefore it counts, it helps. Whereas if you're just folding over corners and sewing in a way that's not generally done, that doesn't help to annul, to be mevata the corner. Okay, those are the two differences. Let's get back to Sifrov, let's continue. We're in Sifrov, on the second line, 2 words from the end, Hago. Let's start there.
Did we do the first Hago?
Oh, okay, we didn't do, you're right, we skipped the first Hago. Like, sometimes I do that because the Shulchan Aruch wrote something, they wrote a sentence, and there were more adds a few words in the middle. I like to see the line of the Shulchan Aruch, and then afterwards understand what the Ramah says, okay? So let's say you're right, we didn't do the first Ramah. Hago. Right? He adds into this case of the Shulchan Aruch, where he says that if you fold over a talis, even if you sewed it, it doesn't help. You can't, and you put on tzitzis on the 4 corners now in the new folded state. Even if you sewed it, it's not good. Right? It doesn't help. So on that, the Ramah says that you have to bear in mind that it's still chayiv in tzitzis on the 4 original corners. Right? So he's actually wearing a beggar now without tzitzis. If he folds over the garment, right? Sorry, not with tzitzis. I mentioned it. Even if you say it again, sorry. Let's round out the last sentence again. Start from the beginning, right? He folds over a talis, right? He folds over a talis. He didn't sew it. Folds over the he didn't sew it. He puts 4 tzitzis on the 4 corners. As it's folded, 1, 2, and then on the folded part as well, 3, 4. Right? Says the Shulchan Aruch that these aren't called corners; it's just folded over, and therefore he hasn't been kind of mitzvah tzitzis. The Ramah is adding on that not only are these corners not chayiv, but the 4 original corners, which happen to be here next to each other over here, 2 over here and 2 over here, like you were mentioning, right? Those 4 original corners are still chayiv. So he has to actually make sure that he has tzitzis in those 4 corners. In this case, it's going to be 2 tzitzis next to each other in each place, right?
So you, in that situation, you couldn't have 2 tzitzit behind you and 2 in front of you.
Right, which is going to be problematic.
Right.
But he would still say the more he'd have to put tzitzis on those 4 corners, right?
And should not put them on the...
Preferably, he shouldn't wear it in that folded state. He shouldn't wear it like that, as you mentioned, because we should have 2 in front, 2 behind.
Right.
He shouldn't wear it like that. If he wants to fold it over and wear it folded, he should sew it. As we mentioned, once he sewed it, then he puts 4 corners. Then he's timed it into 2 new corners here. Then he puts, but if he's not sewing it, then he has to put tzitzis in the 4 corners, the 4 real corners.
The original 4.
That's right, the 4 original corners. And as well, it preferably shouldn't wear it like that. They should wear it opened up. Hagor, and that's the second Ramah now. Some hold that it's chayiv even without tefillah. So some are cholik on this whole din of the Shulchan Aruch, and hold that even just folding, changes the shape of the garment. And we've now put tzitzis on those 4 new corners that have been produced by the folding weaver. Right? So some are cholik on the din of the Shulchan Aruch.
Right.
Okay.
But he says without
so he says therefore one should put tzitzis without by making a bracha. Now on this, the Mishnah was very unhappy with this, right? With this opinion of the Ramah. Let's have a look at the Mishnah Berurah. So we've called Yutes, Lo Levarich. Tom hu kol ha'achronim, ma tikkun b'zeh. All the achronim are astounded at this psak of the Shulchan Aruch. What does he help by putting on tzitzis without making a bracha? Maybe the halacha is like the machaber. Right? If we've been choshesh for the 2 opinions here, it doesn't help to put on tzitzis not make a bracha, because according to the opinion of the Ramah brings, it's chayav tzitzis in the 4 original corners, which are these 2 here and these 2 down here. Right? The Ramah said, okay, so put tzitzis on and don't make a bracha. But according to the opinion of the Shulchan Aruch, folding. 1 second. No, other way around. According to the Ramah, if you folded it, you have reshaped the garment. Okay? So if I put tzitzis in the 4 corners as it is now, which is 1 here, 1 at the folded part here, one down here, one over here. Right? That's according to the Ramah. And he says put them on without bracha. But Achronim say it doesn't help to put them on without bracha, because according to Shulchan Aruch, this is not called a reshaped garment. This is, we look at it as in its original shape, and therefore we have to put tzitzis in the original four corners, which would be a pair, one over here and one over here, that's two, and one over here, one over here. Right? So the Achronim say that if you're going to be a choshesh for the opinion of this opinion that Ramah is bringing, then you can't wear such a beged at all. You can't wear such a garment. Right?
According to the Shulchan Aruch.
If you're going to be choshesh for both opinions,
it's impossible.
Then you'd have to put on six tzitzis, which we don't do. So therefore, one shouldn't do such a thing. Right? So they disagree with the opinion with the conclusion of the Ramah to put on tzitzis without a bracha. And therefore they continue, and therefore one shouldn't make such a thing. One should not fold over a talis unless one sews it. If it's sewn, then we saw that according to all opinions, the Shulchan Aruch agrees that once it's been sewn, then one puts tzitzis in the four new corners.
When they say sewn, one could have two interpretations. That is to say, in order to keep it in place, you sew the length of it where the two corners met, or a proper garment where you're really making two layers. You're actually sewing three sides.
Right. I did suggest it when we read the Shulchan Aruch, because too busy describing the case. The Shulchan Aruch says clearly there on the second line. It says Elam kei tofa kulo va'afilu meruach achas. Even if you only sewed it on one side of the beged. Right? Even if you sewed it only on one side of the beged, then it's good enough. And it's just like sew one side.
Unless it's sewed up entirely.
Okay.
The evidence only entirely on one side.
Sorry?
Sewed up entirely.
Sounds like you sewed up one entire side. One side. Sounds like sewed up entirely one side, right? Okay. Where are we? We're just in the middle of the Mishnah Berurah called New Test. In the middle of where it has a Chaf Zayin in brackets, in parentheses. It says even if one makes wide stitches, it's also good enough. Once he's sewn it, even if it's wide stitches, it's already not easy to open up, and therefore it's good enough. Okay, let's continue. Let's move on with the next. One second, we're in the middle of the Shulchan Aruch.
Middle of that.
Right, it's a new halacha. You continue the Sif Vav. It's a new halacha. We're on the fourth line of Sif Vav. Hitil tzitzis al tzitzis. Im niskaven levatel orishono. Now he's put tzitzis. He's got a garment and he's put two lots of tzitzis on the same corner. Okay. Hitil tzitzis al tzitzis. Im niskaven levatel orishono. Chotech orishono ksheir. If when he put the second one on, he intended to annul the first lot of tzitzis, then he cuts off the first one and it's kosher. If he intended to add, so there would be two lots of tzitzis strings on each corner. Shulchan Aruch holds that if he intended that there should be two there, even if he afterwards he removed one of the two, it doesn't help. It's possible.
When we say two, we're talking about sets of tzitzis.
Two sets of tzitzis, yes. Right. 2 sets of 8 strings tied on. The Gemara argues, and he holds that some are matir in all cases. The kodem shorach is possible before you cut them is possible in all cases. Okay, so there are more paskins. That it doesn't make a difference whether he had in mind to annul the first ones or not. When he still has 2 pairs of tzitzis, 2 sets of tzitzis on each corner, it's possible. Once he cuts off one of them, he's left with only one, then it's kosher. Irrelevant of what he intended to do in the first place. It's just a very simple mathematical equation. If he has 2, it's no good. If he has 1, it's fine. Right? And the Mishnah Berurah in Kodem Chaf Beis, he says, "V'chein pasuk achronim paskin like the Ramah." It's just very simple. You just have to make sure he has 1 lot of tzitzis in each corner. If for some reason he put on 2, he just has to cut off one of them and he's okay. Okay, 22. We'll continue Sifra Zayin tomorrow. It's going to get very interesting now, because not the next Sifra, the one after, Sif Ches, from Sif Ches until the end of the Simon, is going to be discussing all different types of garments. For example, shirts. We talked about that. Shirts, maybe it's called 4 corners. We have 2 corners up here, 2 at the bottom. All various different types of garments, which are called scarves. Scarves are 4 corners. We're going to discuss all these sorts of garments. Are they chayiv? Are they not chayiv? Why are they chayiv? Why are they not? And that's the rest of the Simon.